They fired me at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the moment the words left their mouths, I knew something catastrophic had been set in motion. Not for me. I'd survived worse storms in my 48 years, but for them. For the building full of people who believed systems ran themselves, who thought payroll magically arrived in their checking accounts because some modernizing consultant waved a wand. I walked out of that conference room with a strange mixture of dread and clarity, like watching a train throttle toward a cliff while the passengers cheer about innovation. They had no idea the drop was coming. People often imagine these things happen with shouting, tension, the kind of theatrics you see on TV. But the truth is quieter, colder. Brian, the VP with the always perfect hair, delivered the news with the same tone he might use to compliment a new carpet. Jessica, the 26-year-old MBA prodigy they hired, beamed like she'd just fixed global warming with a spreadsheet. I remember staring at her laptop, the bright sticker on it that said work smarter, not harder, and thinking, you're about to learn what working smarter actually looks like. I'm Hal, full name Harold Peterson, but after 9 years running the payroll database at Northbridge Industrial, nobody called me anything except Hal. I wasn't glamorous. I wasn't one of those TED Talk buzzword people. I was the guy buried in the basement server room making sure 8,500 workers, welders, machinists, chemical techs, received correct paychecks every other Friday. Those paychecks kept families alive. They kept mortgages paid. They kept marriages from falling apart. I knew that because mine depended on them too. My wife Linda teaches 3rd grade. We've got 2 kids in college, both tuition bills stacked like threats on the kitchen counter. Emma wants to be an engineer, smart as blades. Jake's studying business, just like the people who fired me. The irony wasn't lost on me. When Jessica walked into my server room earlier that day, announcing she was taking over payroll, I had no idea I'd be unemployed an hour later. But I did know one thing. There was no universe in which her little Excel model could replace the back-end monster I'd kept alive for nearly a decade. We called it the Beast. Multiple buildings, multiple unions, hazard pay, seniority systems. It took 47 time-tracking inputs just to calculate overtime. Miss 1 decimal point, and you didn't just break payroll. You broke livelihoods. I left that conference room with a cardboard box full of my life. A photo of Linda and the kids at Lake Erie. My dented coffee mug that said I'm here because you broke something. My lucky screwdriver set. When I powered down my workstation for the last time, the fans whined like an old dog settling in for its final nap. That machine had been running for 387 consecutive days. I'd been there for almost all of them. As I walked through the cubicles towards security, people glanced up, confused. Hal never leaves early. Hal never misses a Friday processing cycle. Hal never. Well, Hal was gone. Paul, the security guard who'd shared coffee and gossip with me for 5 years, looked sick as he scanned my badge. He muttered an apology I didn't need. Before stepping into the elevator, I leaned in and said, "Do me one favor, Paul. Cash Fridays check the minute the bank opens. Before noon. Don't wait." He blinked like I'd spoken in riddles. "Hal, what's going to happen Friday?" "You'll see," I said. "And trust me, you'll want cash in hand before anyone else realizes what's coming." The elevator doors closed, and my life at Northbridge Industrial vanished behind the thin metal panels. At home, Linda asked why I was early. I told her the truth. I'd been replaced by someone who thought running payroll for 8,500 industrial workers could be done with conditional formatting and pivot tables. She went silent in that way wives do when they're trying not to swear in front of the neighbors through the walls. She was scared about tuition, about the mortgage, about everything. I told her Friday would be educational. Not for us, for them. Wednesday crept by with an eerie quiet. My phone stayed dark. No system alerts. No frantic messages about data mismatches. No requests for help resolving a broken multi-threaded process. It was like a gunshot before the echo. Thursday morning, the tremors hit. Screenshots flooded my phone from old coworkers. One guy's pay stub preview said he'd worked 4,247 hours in a week. Another said he owed the company money after negative overtime adjustments. Someone else had a hazard pay calculation that looked like it had been multiplied by the national debt. A classic column mapping screw-up. Rookie level. Exactly what happens when you import thousands of rows into an Excel sheet built for sample data from 100 employees. Then came the first company-wide email. temporary payroll display issues, revolutionizing operations, formatting anomalies. I laughed so hard Linda came running to check on me. By evening, Jessica had called 3 times. Brian twice. The CEO, someone I'd never spoken to directly in 9 years, left a voicemail that sounded like a man holding back a full-body scream. Words like unexpected disruptions, critical timelines, and urgent callback were sprinkled everywhere. I didn't call back. Friday morning arrived like a funeral march. My phone vibrated nonstop. Social media exploded. The union called an emergency meeting. Workers posted screenshots of empty checking accounts, bounced car payments, and mortgage warnings. One guy uploaded a video from the break room saying, "If I don't get paid by noon, I'm driving my truck through the front lobby." By 9 a.m., local news stations were running headlines. Major manufacturing payroll failure. 8,500 paychecks missing. That was the first mini cliffhanger. Everything they didn't believe would happen happened faster than they could panic. My phone rang again. The caller ID flashed the CEO's number. I finally answered. "Mr. Peterson, Hal, thank God. We are facing a crisis of unprecedented magnitude." "I noticed," I said, sipping my coffee. "We need you back immediately. Tell me what it will take." I let the silence build. Let him feel the weight. $20,000 wired to me before I stepped foot inside that building. I said, "A new contract. 2.5 times my old salary. 2 years guaranteed." I answer directly to you. And a public apology from Brian and Jessica posted on the company website. "That's outrageous," Brian's voice barked in the background. I said nothing. CEOs fear silence more than threats. Finally, the CEO sighed. "Fine. All of it. Just get down here." The second mini cliffhanger. I returned to the building they'd kicked me out of. Except this time, people watched me walk in like a surgeon arriving to save a dying patient. When the door to the server room opened, the beast hummed like it recognized me. It felt like returning to a loyal dog after someone else tried to feed it poisoned food. It took 14 hours. 14 brutal hours of reconstructing corrupted transaction logs, restoring backups Jessica didn't know existed, manually recalculating thousands of overtime entries, dealing with union contract clauses that would make lawyers faint, and writing emergency scripts to bypass the broken Excel imports. At 4 a.m. Saturday morning, I transmitted the corrected payroll file to the Federal Reserve. By Monday, 8,500 families had their pay. That week, my new office was ready, a corner office overlooking the plant floors where real work happened. My nameplate read, Harold Peterson, Director of Information Systems. The company website posted a formal apology. Jessica pursued opportunities elsewhere, which is corporate code for escorted out with a cardboard box. Brian got reassigned to a plant in a different city, far away from the one he broke. The twist was simple. They tried to replace the guy who knew how everything actually worked with someone who only knew what things looked like in a textbook. And they paid the price. That weekend, Linda and I took the kids to the nicest steakhouse in the city. Jake raised his glass and said, "To Dad, who saved 8,500 families and made corporate America kneel a little." Emma laughed. "To Dad, the guy who fixes disasters the way other people fix loose screws." I looked at them, at my real reason for doing all of it, and something inside me settled. I'd spent years being ignored, treated like old equipment, assumed replaceable. But sometimes the best revenge isn't yelling or plotting. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people learn exactly who you were all along. The one person holding everything together. As we walked out of the restaurant, I checked my phone. A single message from Paul, the security guard. "Al, thanks for the warning. Cash the check early. You saved my ass." I smiled. Outside, the night was calm, city lights flickering across the river. Behind me, the beast slept, full and satisfied, waiting for the next payroll cycle like a creature that finally had its rightful keeper back. Some systems don't run on software. They run on people. People who care. People who know. And sometimes, when the world tries to replace those people with shortcuts, that same world gets exactly the crash course it deserves.